Imagine this. You are standing in total darkness. The air is thick, suffocatingly hot, and smells of old blood, animal excrement, and the sweat of 1,000 terrified men. You can't see your own hands, but you can feel the cold iron chains cutting into your wrists. Above your head, through the thick wooden planks of the ceiling, you hear it, the roar. It sounds like distant thunder, but it is not a storm. It is 50,000 people. They aren't cheering for a sports team. They aren't cheering for a song. They are screaming for your death. You are not a hero in a movie. You are not a warrior seeking glory. To the Roman Empire, you are just meat, a resource to be spent. Suddenly, the floor beneath you jerks violently. A system of ropes and pulleys begins to lift you, up, toward the blinding sliver of light above. The trapdoor flies open with a deafening crash. The Mediterranean sun hits your eyes like a physical hammer, and before you can even take a breath to fill your lungs, you see it. A lion, starved for 3 days, muscles rippling under its skin, sprinting directly at you. Welcome to the Colosseum. But I want you to forget what you've seen in Hollywood blockbusters. Forget the romanticized glory of Rome, because the building you're looking at wasn't just an arena. It was history's most sophisticated, industrial-scale death factory. A machine built of stone and concrete, designed for one purpose, to process life into entertainment. And the scariest part? It was all rigged from the very beginning. To truly understand the horror, we have to look at why this thing exists in the first place. We need to go back to Rome, 69 AD. Historians call this the year of the 4 emperors. That sounds poetic, but the reality was chaos. Rome was burning. Civil war was tearing the streets apart. Emperors were being assassinated one after another. Galba was murdered in the Forum. Otho committed suicide. Vitellius was dragged through the streets and killed by a mob. The empire was on the brink of total collapse. The people were starving, angry, and they hated the ruling class. Enter Vespasian, the new guy in charge. Vespasian was different. He wasn't a blue-blooded aristocrat born in a palace. He was a gritty general, a soldier's soldier. He knew he couldn't win the people with pretty speeches or promises of reform. He needed a distraction. He needed a massive, shiny object to make them forget they were hungry and angry. He did something brilliant and twisted. He looked at the center of Rome, where the hated tyrant Nero had built his private golden house, a sprawling palace of gold and ivory that consumed the city. Vespasian bulldozed it. He drained the massive artificial lake Nero had built for himself. He told the citizens, "I am giving this land back to you." And on the bed of that drained lake, he poured the foundations for the Flavian amphitheater. We call it the Colosseum. But here is a dark detail often left out. How did he pay for it? It wasn't tax money. The Colosseum was built with the blood money from the sack of Jerusalem. Tens of thousands of Jewish slaves were marched to Rome to break their backs, hauling the travertine stone from the quarries of Tivoli. This monument of Roman glory was built on the absolute destruction of another culture. Let's talk scale, because modern eyes often underestimate it. This structure is 48 meters high. That's a 12-story building constructed without modern cranes, hydraulics, or steel girders. It held up to 80,000 spectators. Think about a modern Super Bowl stadium. Now imagine building that with nothing but concrete, stone, and muscle. The logistics were staggering. It had 80 numbered entrances. A crowd of 50,000 could exit the building in under 15 minutes. We still use this design logic in stadiums today. But the Colosseum wasn't just a pile of rocks, it was a microcosm of Roman society. Where you sat defined who you were. The senators sat at the bottom, closest to the blood, on marble seats. Above them were the knights, the businessmen. Higher up were the ordinary citizens, the plebeians, and at the very top, in the nosebleed section, sitting on wooden benches, were the women and the slaves. It was a vertical map of social hierarchy. And to keep these people comfortable while they watched murder, Roman engineers designed the velarium. This was a massive, retractable canvas awning that covered the crowd to shield them from the sun. It was so heavy and complex that it had to be operated by a special detachment of sailors from the Roman Imperial Navy. Think about that. The Navy was deployed not to fight a war, but to provide shade for the audience. Now, look at the floor of the arena, or rather, what's under it. This is the Hypogeum, the underground. This is where the magic happened, and by magic, I mean nightmares. It was a two-story labyrinth of tunnels, cages, and holding cells hidden beneath the sand. While the crowd sat in the sun, hundreds of slaves worked in the dark, suffocating heat down here, operating a complex series of machines. The smell down there would have been unbearable, a mix of animal dung, rotting meat, and fear. They had elevators, yes, elevators, 28 manually operated lifts. Here's how it worked. A scenery change is needed. A team of 4 men pushes a massive wooden capstan. The ropes pull tight, the gears grind, and suddenly, boom, a forest appears on the arena floor, or a desert, or a cage full of leopards. It was theatrical genius, but it was designed for terror. Imagine being a gladiator in the arena. You're fighting a man in front of you. You think you're safe from behind. Suddenly, a trapdoor opens 5 feet away and a bear rises out of the ground. The crowd didn't just want violence, they wanted surprises. They wanted a narrative. And the engineers down in the Hypogeum were the directors of this snuff film. There are even accounts, though historians argue about the logistics, that in the early days, before the Hypogeum was fully built, they could flood the arena. They would channel water from the aqueducts to turn the Colosseum into a lake. They brought in flat-bottomed ships and staged naumachia, sea battles. Thousands of condemned prisoners were forced to fight on these ships until the water turned red. It was the ultimate display of Roman power, the ability to bring the ocean into the center of the city and fill it with death. So, who were the stars of this show? Hollywood tells you gladiators were all noble warriors fighting for freedom, chanting, "Maximus, Maximus." No, that is a lie. Most were investments. A gladiator was expensive to feed, massage, and train. They were the sports stars of their day. Killing them quickly was bad for business. Actually, many fights didn't end in death. They had referees, they had rules. If a guy fought well, the crowd might let him live. Why? Because the editor, the politician sponsoring the games, didn't want to pay the replacement fee for a dead fighter to the lanista, the gladiator trainer. But let's not sanitize it. It was still brutal. The gladiators were divided in classes. You had the murmillo, heavily armored like a tank with a large shield. You had the retiaris, the net fighter, who wore almost no armor and had to rely on speed and a trident. Watching a retiaris fight a murmillo was like watching a dancer fight a tank. It was designed to create drama, to pit speed against strength. However, the real horror didn't happen during the gladiator fights. It happened at lunchtime, the meridiani. While the VIPs went to grab a snack or gossip, the arena needed filler content. This wasn't combat. This was extermination. This was where the damnatio ad bestias happened, condemnation to the beasts. Criminals, prisoners of war, or Christians were thrown in naked. No weapons, no armor, just flesh against fang. They released the beasts, lions from North Africa, tigers from India, Bears from Scotland, rhinoceroses, ostriches. Rome hunted so many animals for these games that they literally drove the North African elephant to extinction. The hippopotamus disappeared from the Nile Delta. Entire species wiped off the map just for a Tuesday afternoon matinee. The floor of the Colosseum was covered in sand to soak up the blood. In fact, the word arena comes from the Latin word arena, which means sand. We are literally calling our stadiums sand because of the blood that used to be spilled there. And the games were rigged. Emperor Commodus, yes, the villain from the movie Gladiator, actually fought in the arena. He fancied himself a god, the reincarnation of Hercules. But he was a coward. He fought opponents armed with wooden swords while he had steel. He fought wounded animals that were tethered so they couldn't attack him. He would chop the heads off ostriches and laugh at the crowd. It was pathetic. It was grotesque. But the crowd cheered, because if you didn't cheer, if you didn't smile, the Praetorian Guard might mark you down, and you might be the next one in the cage. Here is the question you should be asking. How much was a ticket to see this carnage? Front row seats? Box seats for the senators? The nosebleeds for the poor? The answer is 0. It was free. Why? Why would the empire spend millions of denarii to put on a free show? Because the Roman emperors understood a concept that still rules our world today: bread and circuses. Give the people cheap food and violent entertainment, and they will never revolt. They will never ask why the emperor is corrupt. They will never ask why the economy is collapsing. They will never ask why their sons are dying in pointless wars on the frontier. They will be too busy screaming for blood. The Colosseum was the ultimate distraction device. It was a pressure valve for a society on the brink of collapse. Eventually, the blood dried up, but it wasn't morality that stopped the games. It was money. By the 5th century, the empire was crumbling, not because of a single battle, but because it rotted from the inside. The economy collapsed. The cost of capturing lions and training gladiators became too high. Christianity rose up and said, maybe we shouldn't kill people for fun, which helped, but the bankruptcy of Rome was the real killer. In the Middle Ages, the Colosseum was abandoned. It became a fortress for warlords. Then it became a quarry. This is the saddest part of the story. The holes you see in the Colosseum walls today, those aren't from time. They are from looters digging out the iron clamps that held the stones together. The marble facade was stripped away to build St. Peter's Basilica and the palaces of the Roman popes. The great death factory was cannibalized to build the holy city. As the saying went, what the barbarians didn't do, the Barberini family did. Today, millions of tourists walk these halls. They take selfies where people were disemboweled. They marvel at the architecture. But when you look at the Colosseum, don't just see it a monument. See it for what it was, a screen. A screen designed to keep people watching, keeping them distracted, keeping them docile. We like to think we are civilized. We look back at the Romans and say, how barbaric. How could they watch death for entertainment? How could they cheer as a lion tore a man apart? But ask yourself this. When you scroll through your phone for 5 hours a day, watching accidents, watching public humiliations, watching people ruin their lives in 15-second clips, are we really that different? We don't have the blood, we don't have the sand, we don't have the lions, but we still have the circus. We still crave the spectacle. We still let the screen distract us from the crumbling world around us. The Colosseum never really closed. It just went digital. What do you think? Is the Colosseum a monument of glory or a monument of shame? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.